Hey, this is Sam Kirchner. I'm going to show my final project for LA 478K. So we'll start off by showing a little bit of my process work. So my initial drawing is up here, just kind of a test and kind of still exploring what I wanted to do for my final, but the idea was to do something of an abstraction of landform, and this is just a little bit of a grid, really. It's all X and Y. There's no third dimension to it, so it's all just two-dimensional. I was just playing around with the functionality of how I wanted it to work. So I have these ellipses that respond to mouse clicks, and the way that it works right now is that if you click on it with the left button of the mouse, it moves upward, whereas if you click with the right button of the mouse, it moves downward. So the majority of that code is all taken up with that functionality of those ellipses. You can see quite a few lines on here that show how if you scroll your mouse over that, it will grow in size, and if you left click and right click, it moves up and down. So that's where the majority of that code lies, and the rest is just calling out those shapes and lines that connect the entire drawing. And then for my final drawing, which is kind of building off of that, I have something just a little bit more complex. Again, sort of an abstraction of landform. And what you see here is basically a blank sheet of paper, but you can see that when you click on those buttons, they respond the same way. And this drawing is in three-dimensional P3D renderer on processing, so a little bit more complex, a little harder to figure out, but I think I pretty much got what I wanted to do. If there's anything more I wanted to do, I might make it able to rotate, which I think would be really interesting, or at least have the camera orbit around it. Maybe you could see more aspects of what you're doing and how you're interacting with this sort of origami-like shape. Um, Another thing I was thinking about this morning actually is one thing you could do is pretty much take any given built landform and put in, corresponding elevations. And so that would be then an abstraction of that particular landform based upon the shape that it is. So, I mean, I don't know. Still playing around with it. I'm sure there are other things I can do with it. And then just to kind of show you how that code works, there's a bit of it that's pretty similar to the previous code in that a lot of it is taken up by the interactivity with those same growing ellipses you can see in that top corner on this little plan grid up here. You can see how there's quite a bit of similar code, but to kind of give you some more information, you can see how those same ellipses correspond to that second drawing there down in the bottom. So that's something that's changed a little bit. In addition to that, I have most of the information stored, or at least how it begins. I have that information stored in several different arrays. I have a two-dimensional array that stores the beginning values of these z elevations, which is what makes these move up and down. It's that third dimension. And they all start at 0 prior to you clicking on those buttons, which changes that z value. Next I have a couple of other arrays that give the locations for the x and y values for both of these grids. So one thing you can do, which is pretty interesting, is you can just change that. You can put in a different value for the spacing or the original location of those grids. So that's fairly interesting. So say, again, going back to what I talked about earlier, if you wanted to have this correspond to a built landscape, you could change the sizing of this and the spacing of those squares so that they could correspond more exactly to that landscape that you're thinking of. Then, as I spoke of, the interactive portion of it takes up quite a bit of space, followed by calling out the shapes that we see, such as these ellipses up here, the points that you see upon this lower drawing, as well as the lines that connect to them. But those are actually vertexes in this particular case, and those vertexes are shapes that correspond to, or their appearance responds to lighting, which is a function that I put in just the other day. So it's a little bit more complex, and I think that that light allows you to see more of that three-dimensional aspect a little bit better. So that's about it. Thanks.